It was just another day, the kind of morning that felt like every other one as Tamara stood in front of the mirror, smoothing out the wrinkles in her navy blue dress. She had worked hard to get to this point. The interview for her dream job was just a few minutes away, and with it, the chance to change the course of her life. She was prepared, confident, and hopeful. But what she didn't know was that today, everything was about to change. Tamara had spent months applying to dozens of jobs, sending her resume to company after company. Finally, she received an invitation for an interview with a prestigious firm. The email said it all. "We are impressed by your qualifications. We would love to meet you." This was the moment she had been waiting for, the breakthrough she desperately needed. She walked into the office building, carrying with her not just her resume, but a lifetime of ambition and dreams. As she entered the lobby, she was greeted by the receptionist, a young woman with a cold smile. Tamara, still trying to maintain her composure, mentioned she was there for the interview. The receptionist barely looked up from her phone as she directed Tamara to the waiting area. There was something in the air that felt off. Tamara tried to shake the feeling, telling herself that she had worked too hard to let her nerves get the best of her. But still, there was something unsettling about the place. The polished floors, the fancy artwork on the walls, the faint scent of expensive cologne. Everything about the building screamed wealth, exclusivity, and power. She waited. The minutes ticked by slowly, the hands of the clock on the wall moving at an almost mocking pace. The other candidates came and went, dressed in their sharp suits, confident, eager. Tamara's stomach churned a little. She knew she was just as qualified as any of them, but she couldn't shake the feeling that maybe she didn't belong in this world. When her name was finally called, she stood up quickly, smoothing her dress one last time before walking into the interview room. The door closed behind her with a soft click, and she was greeted by the hiring manager, a middle-aged man in a gray suit who barely glanced up as she entered. "Please, take a seat," he said, his voice flat and disinterested. Tamara sat down, trying to make herself as comfortable as possible, though it felt impossible. The interview began with the usual questions: her experience, her skills, her strengths. Tamara answered them all with the poise she had practiced, but the man didn't seem to care. His eyes were constantly flicking to his watch, as if he was already thinking about something else. Then came the question that made her pause. "So, Tamara, I have to ask, why do you think someone like you would fit in here? You do realize the type of company we are, right?" She blinked, confused. "I believe my skills and experience are exactly what this company needs. I've worked with diverse teams, I'm adaptable, and I'm eager to contribute." The man looked her up and down, a smirk curling at the edges of his lips. "Right. But I mean, you really don't seem like the type who would be comfortable here, if I'm being honest." The words hit her like a slap. She wasn't sure if it was his condescending tone or the dismissive way he was treating her, but something inside her snapped. This wasn't the first time she had faced this kind of judgment, but it was the first time it had felt so blatant. The interview, which had started off as a glimmer of hope, was quickly turning into an interrogation. Tamara fought to keep her voice steady. "I believe I am perfectly capable of handling any environment. My experiences have taught me to adapt to different challenges." The man's smirk deepened and he leaned back in his chair. "Well, you know, we have a very exclusive culture here. Only the best make it. And I'm not sure you're cut out for it." Her face flushed. She knew what he was insinuating, and the sting was unbearable. Without even waiting for her to respond, he stood up abruptly, signaling the end of the interview. "I think we are done here. Thank you for your time, Tamara." Stunned, Tamara stood up, trying to maintain her dignity, but she could feel the heat rising in her cheeks. She wanted to scream, to fight back, but she simply nodded and walked toward the door, her head held high, even though her heart was breaking. As she left the room, she could feel the eyes of the receptionist on her, an almost mocking look in her gaze. Tamara's mind raced. What had just happened? Was it because of the color of her skin? Was it because she wasn't the type they were looking for? It didn't make sense. She had all the qualifications. She had worked for everything. She had. But in that moment it felt like none of it mattered. Tamara walked out of the building, her steps slow and heavy. She was humiliated, angry, and confused. The whole world around her seemed to spin. She didn't even notice when the car pulled up beside her. A sleek, black sedan. The window rolled down, revealing a familiar face. "Tamara, what are you doing here?" It was her husband, Marcus, the CEO of a successful tech company. She froze, her eyes widening in disbelief. "Marcus, how did you—" Marcus's face was calm, but his eyes held a deep concern. "I was at a meeting with the board. I saw you come out of the building. What happened?" Tamara felt the tears threatening to spill over, but she held them back, shaking her head. I didn't get the job. They kicked me out. They said I wasn't the right fit." Marcus's eyes narrowed, his jaw tightening. "Tamara, I'm so sorry. But this is far from over. You don't even know who owns this company, do you?" Her head snapped up, confused. "What do you mean?" "Tamara, I own it," he said quietly. The world around her seemed to come to a screeching halt. Everything felt like it was spinning. She couldn't comprehend what she had just heard. "What do you mean you own it?" Marcus's face darkened. "This entire company, I've been the CEO for the last 5 years, and I just found out that you were treated like that. No one disrespects you, Tamara." Her heart pounded in her chest as the realization hit her like a wave. She had no idea how to react, and in that moment, everything changed. Marcus was angry. She could see it in his eyes, and it terrified her to think of what he might do. Tamara wasn't sure if she was ready for what was about to unfold. The man who had just thrown her out of the interview had no idea who he had just insulted. Would he face the consequences of his actions? Or was Tamara about to be thrust into a storm she wasn't prepared for? The tension hung in the air as Marcus looked at her, waiting for her response. What would she do next? Tamara stood frozen, her mind struggling to make sense of the words Marcus had just spoken. The CEO of the company she had just been rejected from was her husband? She blinked, trying to process the information. It felt like a surreal moment, like the world had shifted beneath her feet. Marcus was the one who had always been there for her, supporting her through every step of her journey. He had been her rock, her partner, and the man who knew the sacrifices she had made to get where she was. But this felt different. The disbelief gnawed at her. "You own the company?" Tamara asked quietly, her voice trembling. She wasn't sure if she was more shocked by his revelation or by the sudden rush of anger she could feel boiling inside her. She could barely contain the confusion and betrayal that surged through her chest. Why hadn't he told her? How could he keep something this important from her? Marcus's expression softened slightly, but there was still a hint of frustration in his eyes. "Tamara, I didn't want to tell you like this. I didn't want it to change anything between us. But now that I see what happened, I don't care about any of that." Tamara swallowed hard, trying to push past the raw emotions threatening to overwhelm her. "But why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you tell me about this earlier?" Her voice cracked, the weight of the day's events pressing on her. Marcus took a deep breath, his gaze shifting as he glanced away. For a moment there was a silence between them, thick with unspoken words. He ran a hand through his hair, his frustration mounting. "I didn't want you to think that I was using my position to get you hired, or that you were only here because of me. I wanted you to get your own chance, your own recognition. You deserve that." Tamara's heart ached at his words. She knew he meant well, but in that moment, it didn't feel like he had been looking out for her. It felt like he had been hiding, behind his own pride, choosing to let her face the world alone when he had the power to help. But there was no time to dwell on that now. The harsh reality of what had just happened at the interview still lingered. The rejection, the treatment she had received. It wasn't just about her job. It was about something deeper, something she had encountered time and time again. The discrimination, the judgment. The idea that someone like her, a black woman with big dreams, didn't belong in the same spaces as those who had everything handed to them. Marcus could see the storm brewing in her eyes. He reached for her hand, gently squeezing it. "I'm sorry. I never wanted you to feel this way, but I swear I'll make it right. No one disrespects you like that. Not on my watch. Tamara wanted to believe him. She really did. But her mind was still reeling, the echoes of the hiring manager's dismissive tone ringing in her ears. She wasn't sure if she was ready to fight that battle just yet. She wasn't sure what that fight would even look like. "What do we do now?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She didn't know if she was asking Marcus for reassurance or if she was asking herself. Marcus's eyes darkened with resolve. Now we find out exactly who was behind this. I'll make sure they understand that this kind of treatment isn't acceptable. You deserve better than that." Tamara nodded, but a knot of unease tightened in her stomach. She didn't want Marcus to go in guns blazing, confronting the people who had rejected her. She wasn't sure if that was the right way to handle it, but at the same time she couldn't just let it slide. Not this time. "I don't want anyone to think I got this job because of you," she said, her voice firm now, the frustration finally making its way to the surface. "I want to earn it. I want to prove I can do this on my own." Marcus looked at her, his gaze intense. "Tamara, you've already proved more than enough. You don't need anyone's approval, but your own." She shook her head, her mind racing. It wasn't about approval. It wasn't about proving anything to anyone. It was about respect, about earning the chance to be seen for who she was, not where she came from or the color of her skin. As they sat in the car, the tension between them was palpable. The streetlights flickered by as they drove in silence, neither of them sure of what to say next. Tamara's thoughts kept drifting back to the interview, the hiring manager's cold dismissal, the way his eyes scanned her like she didn't belong. It was all too familiar, too hurtful. She knew the world wasn't always kind to people like her, but she had always hoped that in a place like this, the corporate world, things would be different. She had hoped that maybe, just maybe, she could find a space where her hard work would be enough, where her talent would speak louder than anything else. But now, sitting in the passenger seat, Tamara felt the weight of reality pressing down on her. The world was never going to make it easy. It was going to keep testing her, keep pushing her, and she wasn't sure how much more she could take. "Tamara," Marcus said, his voice quiet but full of concern, "I don't want you to think this is over. I'm going to make sure the people responsible for this know who they're dealing with. This is my company, and I'll take care of it." She turned to him, her eyes still clouded with uncertainty. "Marcus, this isn't just about your company. It's about the way people like me are treated every day. It's about the doors that are slammed in our faces before we even get the chance to prove ourselves." Marcus fell silent, and for a moment, the only sound in the car was the hum of the engine. He didn't know how to respond to that. He didn't know how to fix what had happened, or if there was even a way to make it right. Tamara glanced out the window, watching the city. Lights blur past, and a cold shiver ran through her. There was something she wasn't saying, something that felt like it was lurking just beneath the surface. She couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just about one interview, that something bigger was at play here. But what? As they neared their apartment, Tamara's thoughts were interrupted by a sudden buzz from her phone. She glanced down, seeing a message pop up on the screen. It was from a number she didn't recognize. Her heart skipped a beat as she read the words. "You don't know who you're messing with. Stay out of this. It's not worth it." Tamara's blood ran cold. She looked at Marcus, who was still focused on the road, unaware of the text. Who could have sent this, and what did it mean? The tension in her chest flared once again. This wasn't just about a job anymore. This was something bigger, something dangerous, and Tamara knew that whatever came next, it was going to change everything.